Shalom.
Shalom. First and foremost, we're going to give all glory and honor to
Yahweh, Ba'Shem, Yahushai, Ba'Shem, Rakah Kadash. Double honors to our elders and apostles at Great Millstone who rule well and teach well. And peace and salutations unto the Lord's elect. This is Brother Yahweh,
Brother Barak. And we're going to be doing a lesson. We already tried to film this twice, but
Esau cut it out.
Esau cut it out. And it's going to be a response to something that somebody said to us, a person, that we're, acquainted with. And basically, this person, he spoke to us and he basically said, because this guy watches our lessons, and he said, it's not just about Esau. It's not, you can't just only talk about Esau, and when I was saying this, we're supposed to be exposing wickedness, man. So if we want to speak about Esau and the wickedness of this man, we're gonna speak about it.
We're gonna speak about it. There's nothing saying that we can't keep talking about it. We have to stop.
Yeah. So this is the book of Ephesians 5 and 11. And it says right here, 1 second, and it says, "Take no part in the worthless pleasures of evil and darkness, but instead rebuke and expose them."
So you're supposed to constantly rebuke and expose Esau and put him on the forefront, because there might be some Israelites that come across your videos or they see you doing camp and they've never heard about the so-called white man being Esau, Edom, from his seed line stemming back to that. So they don't know, and they don't know, but until you tell them, then they can put the puzzles together and say, you know what, you're right. Because what does this devil do? He constantly seeks to just put himself in a good light, act like he's the victim, make himself the hero.
The scriptures say Satan masquerades himself as an angel,
of light, and that's exactly what Esau, Edom does. He creates problems, and then he comes up with solutions that aren't even good, healthy solutions. They're solutions that are just going to destroy you even more.
Yep.
I mean, everywhere you see, he perverts and he destroys. And what does it talk about? Your adversary seeks like a lion.
Yeah, in the book of 1 Peter 5 and 8, and it says, let's bring that out. It says, "Be sober and vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour."
So he's like a ravenous wolf, a lion that's just hungry just to cause destruction, man. He breeds wickedness, and he just thinks about causing violence with the sword. So you got to be sober and vigilant. Being sober and vigilant means being on point, and that means speaking against his wicked ways, man, and exposing it. You go in and you're walking around and you see somebody that's a so-called Edomite. You gotta be sober and vigilant and know how to deal with them.
And the apostles and elders, they always talk about repetition. Repetition being the father of skill. That's what they always like to mention. So we're gonna repeat the same thing over and over and over again.
Our people need to hear it more than once.
A new person might come along and they might not have heard that.
Yeah, exactly.
And they need to hear that.
And what does it say? The Lord, He hates. We're supposed to hate what He hates.
Because a lot of people, another thing is, like, they always feel like they gotta speak about something new. Like, they don't want to bring in the milk. They want to just do these crazy breakdowns.
And if you see, there's a lot of brothers that elders and bishops and even the apostles, they have topics that they speak on more than once. Because maybe they're very sound and knowledgeable in those topics, and it's something that they could always do videos and speak about. And when you think about it, it is repetition. That's healthy repetition. It's it's keeping you on point. It's not vain. It's not vain repetition like these other camps, these other congregations that just want to talk and blabble and then speak things that are not according to the true doctrine. So when somebody's talking about, why is it always about Esau, aren't we supposed to move in love? That's what they say. Well, doesn't it say in Romans, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated? And we supposed to be like the Lord, So if the Lord hates Esau, we're gonna hate him too. Yeah, I mean, this guy's done nothing but to destroy and manipulate and hurt our people in every form and fashion, and we're supposed to love him.
And the thing is, it's embedded in this man's DNA to hate us.
So he's never gonna change. He's never gonna change. He's like a snake. there's an Indian Native American folktale, if I'm not mistaken, and this lady, she nursed a snake back to health, and then he attacked her afterwards. And that's exactly how Esau is. You know, you give him a helping hand, and then he eventually bites it. You know, we've had instances before in the past where you know acquaintances or people that we dealt with in the workforce, these Edomites, you know, we might have felt mercy for them. This was before we really knew about who Esau Edom was, and we're thankful for the elders, apostles, and bishops on down for really exposing who Esau was, so we could see who he is through the Spirit, so we can identify him. But you know, we helped these individuals, and we felt bad for them in the beginning, but then they ended up backstabbing us and completely just going against us. You know, the whole time they were just jealous of who we were, how we move, how we act, our blessing. They're jealous of our blessing because they haven't been gifted that. You know, their fate is that they're just going to end up as slaves. So they want to pervert doctrine. You know, they want to speak profane and vain babblings, where it talks about that in the book of 2 Timothy, if I'm not mistaken, and speak a different doctrine according to the true gospel, you know, to fit their ways. That's what you see with the Christian church. You know, these pastors, most of them are Edomites. I mean, of course you got your Jakes, like, you know, TD Snakes and, you know, and such, but they're ravenous wolves. You know, they're ravenous wolves. So that's why it's very important, aBoUt, to be wise. Be therefore wise as serpents, harmless as doves. It says, I've sent you out in the midst of wolves. Be therefore wise as serpents, harmless as doves. So you're not going to be paranoid, but you're going to be prudent. You're going to be watching your every move. You're going to be on point, man. You know, keeping your head on a swivel and really seeing Esau for who he is. Okay, and don't hesitate from speaking about it. If you say, oh, well, I'm always talking about it, you know, people say I'm always talking about the same thing. Well, if it's edifying according to the gospel, why not talk about it? You know, if you think about it like this, there's many brothers in the ministry that have different gifts. You know, some like to speak according to the prophecy. Some like to break down the mark of the beast, you know, constantly. Others, you know, they speak about, you know, the so-called the so-called white man, Esau. While you have others that are very good with edification and you know, different things. Everything helps the body. You know, so if you have a gift, or if you're good at a talking point that ties in with this gospel and it's edifying, don't refrain yourself from speaking. What does it talk about muzzling an ox? You want to bring that out?
Bring that out, so.
You know?
So in this book of Deuteronomy 25, it says, do not muzzle an ox while it's treading out the corn.
So what is that talking about?
You know, we're not supposed to interfere with people's work. You know, when the men of the Lord are doing the work of Yahweh Shemir why would you go and interrupt them?
Why would you
like a stumbling block?
Be a stumbling block and try to, you know, tell them, oh, well,
you're not supposed to do this, or you gotta slow down, or you gotta don't talk about Esau, man. Fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you, man. Shalak Rayam on you, man. You talk about that because you know you're an Edomite at the end of the day in the spirit. Well, no, not even. There's some Jakes on that coon spirit, man. They just wanted to defend the white man.
Yeah.
You know, maybe because they have people in their, you know, family or friends that are,
you don't know how wicked this man really is.
You don't know how wicked this man is until he's really, really like tested, man.
And when you have something he wants, you know, he's gonna slowly creep his way. Yeah. Until he try to get that, you know, that thing. You know, this man's envious. He wants full control. He desires power. You know, that's why this man always, you know, he's always kissing ass. You know, because he's trying to get that position of power. You know, then just to fuck the other guy over. You know,
that's how he is.
But you have to let these people win their carnal battles, because you know, ultimately their whole fate is to be a slave at the end of the day. It's not going to be no Gentiles grafted in having a great time.
A great time.
You're going to be grafted in as a slave.
Bounce around. What does it say?
You're going to be in the kingdom. You're going to be in there as a slave, though.
He bring out. He who taketh into captivity shall go into captivity.
Yeah.
Bring that out. Because ultimately, Esau, this is your fate. So don't be coming around trying to come and into this ministry and come through the woodwork, you know, like come through the back end like a many men crept in unawares, and then you want to start teaching, breaking down, and having a bunch of wives and trying to take on our customs. Get the fuck out of here, bro. Like, go back to the Christian church. Like, go stick your head in a wall, because ultimately at the end of the day, this ain't for you. this really ain't for you. You're just a conniving piece of shit, okay? And we're not going to do anything on this side, man, but I can't wait till the Lord Yahweh Shai executes judgment on you. You know, in his fashion, the way he chooses and pleases, man.
And like the brothers from the Chicago camp, they were saying how there's gonna be, and you know how there's a 7 year, there's a land rest. You gotta let the land rest. So these motherfuckers are literally gonna have to eat dirt. You know, we're literally gonna make you eat dirt. You know, we're literally gonna we're gonna be cooking food, and you're gonna be able to, you're gonna
smell the steak.
You're gonna smell the food. You're not gonna be able to eat it.
Yeah, you're gonna smell the steak.
Because your ass tried to torture us on this side. You know, we're gonna get back into it.
And bring that out in a second after I make this point.
Yeah.
Actually, bring that out right now.
So this is Revelation 13:10. It says, "He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints." And we always bring the scripture out because, you know, we repeat it all the time just as a reminder. You know, at the end of the day, this is you know, the Lord's word, right?
This is His word.
And you know, there's no in between. You know what I'm saying? If you go into if you lead that into captivity, you're going to captivity.
Yeah, it's plain and simple. That's what the scriptures say. It's plain and simple, right in your face. You can't twist it. No, but a lot of Christians, a lot of Edomites, they love to do that. They love to pick scriptures that pertain to them, and then, you know, if it doesn't pertain to them, they want to say, oh, well, it's the Old Testament, or oh, you know, he was done away with that. You know, you can't do that. This book says what it says. You can't just go around misinterpreting things.
And let me say, can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
People would like to bring out that scripture, "Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite." You had this one, you know, Moabite, Ammonite, whatever the fuck he is, message us. He said he pulled out that scripture, but they don't realize that if you actually go into the Strongs of that word, that was actually an error. For I believe it was a Syrian. It wasn't actually speaking about an Edomite. You know, and so these people, they don't actually go into the etymology and breakdowns of the actual words. You know, they just kind of like talk out of their ass.
Yeah, and you got to be very careful for, you know, sometimes using certain translations can be good, but if it's not coming back to the true gospel, then you gotta watch out. You gotta always, you know, discern these other translations that might be easier to understand certain scriptures in a different fashion, in a different sentence, so to speak. But if it says, for example, like, you know, a lot of these different translations, you know, were twisted around to try to, you know, make it seem like these Edomites are included, you know, or these other nations are included, and quite frankly, that's not the case. You know, the Lord gave this to us, okay, and us only, us Israelites, Yasharallah, the 12 tribes. You know, so for a lot of those guys out there that say, oh, well, why are you fantasizing about what we're going to do in the kingdom and this and that? Well, didn't your people fantasize about doing wicked things to our people every single day? And they did it. They did brutal things that are just unimaginable, egregious. Okay, and we're going to do things in a righteous fashion. We're not going to do things that are going off, you know, according to the law and to these scriptures. But why not meditate on the things of the kingdom? And that's, you know, that's the destruction of Esau, because when Esau gets destroyed, everything's going to be brought back to normal in righteousness.
And in the scripture, talk about we shall meditate terror. So paraphrasing.
Meditate terror.
Yeah, so, you know, we're going to literally fucking torture this man.
We're gonna destroy this man. And honestly, the one last message we want to say is that, you know, if these Edomites try to come and debate you and talk to you and vex your spirit, you got to really, like, know how to deal with them. Because honestly, let them win the carnal battles, but according to these scriptures, they're never going to be able to understand it because it wasn't meant for them. Their spirit's just going to want to try to divert the true gospel and fit it to their narrative. So you got to just really tread lightly and just not even deal with them. Like, for example, when that you know, so-called Moabite and that other Edomite were trying to, like, you know, provoke, you know, agent provocateurs, we just blocked them. We weren't dealing with them. We weren't going to give them that energy. It's not worth it, you know. So you got to understand, like, don't let these people vex your spirit, because ultimately, you know, they got spirits on them.
Yeah.
They got heavy spirits on them, heavy demons, that Christian demon, you know, the new covenant demon, you know, and all sorts of things. So it's very important to just be wary And don't hesitate from speaking about the things that need to be spoken about according to this gospel. So we wanted to leave you off with that message, just a quick little message of the Spirit, impromptu, on the fly. I want to give all the glory and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, Ba'ashim Ruach double honors to our elders and apostles at Great Millstone who rule well and teach well. Peace and salutations to the Lord's elect. This is the brother Yawasop,
Brother Barak,
and Shalom.
Shalom.